Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 499. Yes, the odometer is ready to click over to 500 of This Week in Hospitality Marketing. Again, live show number 499. I say that with emphasis because if you told me over 10 years ago that this fun little video mobile app thing that we started messing around with and broadcasting from was going to find me here almost, 10 years plus later, doing the same thing every week, I would have been like, yeah, you're crazy. This is just fun, whatever. You have to go back 10 years to understand how the impact of what these video mediums had become. We're so used to in common with now. We use it in live broadcasting so persistently for everything. But back then in the day, it wasn't available. And here we are. Anyways, some great news for next show. I'll talk to you about it a little bit. But first, let's dive into this week's show. For everyone that's joining us live, thank you so much for catching up with us and turning live around the world. We broadcast our TV channel in 209 countries. It is a TV channel. It's actually on your TV. You can go to our TV channel, the hospitality channel, on your Google TV, your Amazon TV, your Apple TV, your Roku, LG, whatever, Vizio, and look for the hospitality channel. And lo and behold, here we are as a live show. There is a paid gateway for more content in the back. I always suggest to do that, but if you're not that deep into it, no worries. But anyway, topic today has been given some thought about this as we talk now, current circumstances, last day of February of 2025. World's changing, always does. Changes faster sometimes than others. Today, this month, this week, this year seems to be in that case. We're looking at lots of variations in things, tariffs that are being imposed by the U.S. And not that tariffs haven't existed around other places and persistent, just it's made the news so predominantly because of the impact that they can have on all economies globally. The United States is a global consumer, number one consumer. And we have that influence on that kind of thing. But all those things being together, it changes the scope of how we communicate with our guests. Being that we are a hospitality marketing show, we're going to talk about, obviously, directly related to hospitality. There are two terms that come into existence for us perpetually in our hospitality marketing world, SEO and SEM. So today's topic is SEO and SEM don't mean what you think they mean anymore. I say that with emphasis because we refer to them in their historic context. Let's take SEO. That's an acronym for Search Engine Optimization. That means that we take our content on our websites. For those that may not be as completely fluent with it, but I think everybody that would watch this show already know what SEO and SEM are. But we'll just go back and go to baseline on this. SEO, Search Engine Optimization, is the control of our content on our websites so that the search engines, Google being the dominant lion in that conversation, Bing being secondary, and then others, also, would be able to readily find the information that would allow them to display our page, our website, when somebody searches for it on their platform. And we have been ruled by our masters of this, our search engine masters for ever since they were incepted. Because for those of you old enough, as I will attest to, back in the day in the late 90s, when the internet was becoming to be a function that was available to more than just businesses, there was very little way of determining or finding websites. As a matter of fact, I remember going to a store that doesn't, I think it exists anymore, Spencer's or something like that, or some equivalent to that in other parts of the country, and getting a website Yellow Pages, a yellow website book, because back then we were still using Yellow Pages. Again, mysterious terminology for those that are younger. And in this book was like a list of websites that you could go find things for. And then, of course, as you were talking to people in message boards, they would share websites that they found, and you would try to find message boards by word of mouth that were about particular topics. And this is how you discover stuff online. Along came the platforms, with Yahoo and Prodigy and so forth, that started featuring websites so you could find them easier. And then they would also have things where they would identify websites that they would organize, and you would see them under categories of travel or whatever. And this is how you discovered websites until along came Google. And they had this ability to go and search websites and then put them in a place that you could look for by describing what you were looking for, and it would show you websites that are related to what you were looking for. Very basic and functional. That turned into the first search engine. Well, as we know, fast forward today, the world has changed. That is now the dominant way that has historically come up to this point, that search engines dominated our ability to discover the content online. If you ask any common person how the internet works, they really don't have a clear definition. They know how it functions for them, but they don't know how it functions for it to work for them. So we all have our IP addresses, and those IP addresses are defined with a top-level domain name that's associated with that IP address, the IP number, and that is directed through as an identifier for us to discover. So search engine optimization, we've been ruled by what does it take for us to have our website, okay, show up for somebody that's looking about what our website's about, because we're not the only one that has that content. Our case in point, hotels. We're not the only hotel in town. So all the hotels in town with us are trying to get in front of the same people looking for hotels in our market. That's what we talk about, search engine optimization, content development, content discovery, so forth. And there's lots of technical ways that this is done with meta tags. Used to be much more valuable than they are now. Deep links, so forth and so on. We've had the discussion, especially on our hospitality marketing club. We've had very consistent, persistent discussions about search engine optimization, because it is always the first place to go to, because it takes the longest to have an impact on, and it is the most valuable long-term value to, because that's really the most cost-effective engagement that you have, is organic discovery of people over your content, rather than having to pay the ads to get in front of them, and you have to pay that money to show up for them. Better to be good at your content, and they discover you organically, naturally, by searching. So I have been everything but telling you why the topic is different for SEO. Again, the acronym has historically, persistently, and will continue on for never long. I'm kind of starting something new, I think, where instead of search engine optimization, we have to change it to search everything optimization. And what I mean is, we have to begin to create in our strategy and our tactics the fact that people discover us on a multitude of platforms, not just search engines. And how we present our content and how we do our content has to be reflective of all the ways that our guests, future guests, potential guests, historical guests can find us. And so, not to have a blind eye to search engines, that there's still the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but we have to be very mindful of all the other ways that our guests discover us. Now, when I say that, now let me obviously say that it's going to be a no-brainer to say that when I say SEM, search engine marketing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm also changing that acronym to search everything marketing. So you see the pattern on the topic. But let's keep with the SEO for at this time. When you look at search engines, Google represents a massive share of it, 85 to 90, depends on who you're talking, which surveys pulling it up and so forth. But on average, let's just say 85% of all search queries on the internet in the world is 85% Google. China obviously is going to be different because they don't allow Google, so forth. But just let's say 85% of all searches in the world are on Google. Then the rest is kind of hobbled between most, being one of the larger and growing, by the way, because of what we'll talk about in a minute. But it's pretty much that. Now, with that being said, that sounds like a very dominant figure, and it is. It truly is. And by volume, it's by far the largest in conversations to that. But when you look at all the platforms that is searchable, when you start including the Amazons, and you start including, my mind just went blank when I was going to give you examples of that. When you think of all the platforms of discovery, all the other platforms of Facebook, there we go. I'm getting back into the green of mentally thinking what I was talking about. All these other platforms, strangely, when you accumulate all of them together, Google only represents about 18% of the overall search world when it comes to this, in the sense of how somebody can discover you. Not saying that search engines aren't powerful and valuable, and not saying that Google doesn't still dominate the space at 85% or more. But when you look at all of the ways that people can find you, and all the platforms they can do, the TikToks and the Instagrams and the messengers, and X for all of its worth, and all these other, Amazon being one of the largest and so forth. Um, when you have all Pinterest, when you have all of these things put together, and you think of all things like Walmart websites and all these places that have search and discovery of their content with it, all of those things, okay, Google only represents about 18% of it. Still massively larger than most other segments, but when you combine it, it's only 18%. So why do I bring this in contrast? Because if we get fixated strictly on search engines, we're not looking to how we satisfy the discovery of our products on other platforms. Now, I'm not saying for you to go race out and start putting a presence on Amazon. It's relative to what it is we're selling. Google will still be a dominant player, if not the dominant player, in our way that we approach all of the discoverabilities of our content for search engine optimization. But we have to be mindful of other ways that people find us. Why in that reference? Because other third-party ads, your Expedias, your hotels.com, these are all search engines as well. People discover us on other platforms. And it's not because of what we do for Google's optimization that the OTAs use the same discovery. They have the same formulations of capabilities, but optimizing for Google tends to be beneficial for how we optimize for the platforms because most of them are very asimilar. As it works for one and it's been successful, so it works for the other who duplicates it. So all these platforms, we need to be in that space and optimized for them in particular. That is not search engine, that's search everything. Everything that can be discovered about us on all these platforms needs to be optimized in the way that we go in and ensure that the content is accurate, the content is complete, the content is reflective of what we're looking to project forward for the persons looking to discover us. And that means our rich media, that means all of our information about ourselves, all the NAP information, name, address, phone number, so forth and so on, are all accurate and complete, plus then some. It also means that we have to optimize what we're doing for all the channels that we're then going to pay to be on, which brings us to the search engine marketing, okay? That is now search everything marketing. This is the ability to make sure that our marketing is inclusive of all the channels that are used for discovery. Now, this is the part I'm going to really focus more on when it comes to what do we do about it. Search everything optimization is wonderful to change over from search engine optimization, but the modality is pretty much the same, except for the inclusion of making sure that you go to the channels that contribute to you outside of Google and ensure that you are organically optimized, okay, with content and all the things that those platforms in particular need to be better at displaying you organically. If there's a number of images you can load, if there's a number of pieces of content you can put in, if there are other pages that you can include, so forth and so on. Just like you do with Google Business and whatever, where you go in and you make sure that every box that is available to benefit you is checked, every process is done so that the platform is utilizing every resource it has to make sure that you have the highest opportunity to be displayed by them for the people that use it. So that pretty much puts to bed the search everything optimization. We're going to keep focusing on the search everything marketing at this point. When people approach, when agencies approach, when hotels approach, it is always underwhelming as to their scope of what they think they're going to be doing. And unfortunately, very repetitive as to how they do this. As you've heard on the show many times before, we talk about the fact that people tend to broadcast marketing. Marketing is a communication channel. They treat it as a broadcast. It seems odd because I'm a broadcast right now, but that's a different analogy. Anyways, the idea is this. They go in and say, okay, we need search engine ads. We need Google ads. We need maybe Bing ads. They don't even sometimes think of Bing, but mostly Google. We need Facebook ads. Okay. And then they kind of just peter off of those two. After those two, they kind of go quiet. They don't really know what else. They don't know that they should be optimizing other aspects as much or even be doing things about that. And if you look at the budget items, they tend to just have digital advertising as a line item. Maybe if they're smart, they have social paid advertising separated from that. They might have other aspects, but very often it's just pretty much that because they don't understand the way it fragments. Now, in this digital ad space, yes, block and tackle fundamentals. Always make sure that you have active, progressive, diverse Google ad platform ads that goes into multiple campaigns, multiple ad sets per campaign, multiple ad groups, and ads. for all of them, diversified by their targeting, diversified by their promotions, diversified by the content. Beyond just the two baskets of brand versus non-brand, you can have a lot more fragmentation between them. You can have incentive brand, you can have event-driven non-brand, you can have destination-driven. There's lots of variations to all these things and custom audiences you can create with them with the very platforms. A lot of platforms have a lot of similarities to this. They've seen what Google has done, and they emulate them to promote the fact that you should be using them more effectively. This goes to the idea of even doing travel ads on OTAs. I'm not saying you should never do OTA stuff because they're a viable partner as much as they are lecherous in their cost, but they are a useful partner when it comes in collaboration of brand exposure in market and or also market and exposure to competitive markets. There's a certain place that those work well. But all that said and same is somewhat familiar territory. When I talk about search everything marketing, I'm talking about all the other stuff that a lot of places don't go into. Now, some hardliners will say you don't even approach these topics until you're doing well with your basics. If everybody's waiting to be perfect, then nobody's going to get anywhere because you're never going to be perfect at what you do. You have to make sure you're sustaining your basic programs with Google ads, Bing ads, Facebook ads, those things. But there is a whole other world of other content. One of the most symbiotic ones that is close to and similar is metasearch. Metasearch is a mandate for hotels now. It is not an option. You have to do metasearch. If not, you are literally giving up prime, right, real result of information, okay, where your competitors are selling your product and you're not there selling it yourself. You have to have a metasearch program. If you do not know what metasearch is, go to myhospitalitychannel.tv, go into the search query metasearch. There will be a boatload of shows where we talk specifically about metasearch functionality, metasearch strategy, metasearch how-to-dos, all of that, both educational and also strategic. So tons of those. And by the way, hospitalitychannel.tv is our I Love Lucy rerun location. The TV channel actually operates on TV, but we also have an app, Hospitality Channel app. You can go on Apple iOS or Google Play, and you can get to the TV channel that way. But also we simulcast Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that stuff. But the website, hospitalitychannel.tv, is our rerun place. You can search by topic, you can search by co-host, you can search by data broadcast. And all of our podcasts on our radio station, all of our radio station stuff with all our other podcasts, all of the shows, all of them are there that you can find for. The TV channel also has a website, talktravel.tv. You can go there too and see what the channel looks like. Past the self-pitching, you have to get into the realm of other things that are getting in front of your guests now that are not as much about search engine results. A couple of things that are happening in our economy right now. One is that there's a huge saturation of AI-generated content. Some of it's helpful, most of it's garbage. Matter of fact, it's so garbagey that it's dominating some of the influencing ways of discovering legitimate content that it's just rewritten over rewritten stuff. And because that rewriting stuff is newer and faster, in production, it overwrites the older stuff that it was based on. And with the current systems, the way they're built with search engines and so forth, it gets higher ranking of result value because it's newer, fresher, and larger. It optimizes. The computer knows what the computer is looking for, so it's going to write better for the computer to find it. And it will displace better original content with replicated and regurgitated content simply by the metrics of how it gets defined in its placement for the optimization. We're fighting that. Why I bring that up is that means we are going to get, and we already are getting, bias as to where the source of content is coming from. We're already getting people that are looking for human source content and not AI source content for authenticity. What that does create is an uncertainty principle of the content that we're being displayed in our search engine results. And that means that people are less likely to use search engines to get their content as they have done historically, because of this lack of confidence that's growing into the source or authenticity of the content. I'm not saying that all AI content is inaccurate, but we have had several shows again on the authenticity and accuracy and truth about it. We have seen many examples in the news where AI has lied to itself to lie to you. So we have issues with authentication. And in some platforms, they are getting to where they're creating this authentic, the truth checks and so forth, that you have an appendix to validate the content and so forth. But this requires your time to go look at it. First off, to go to the link that supports it for the content you're looking for, then go to see where they got the information, validate that what you just read is actually accurate. All said and done, It's a lot of your time. Better yet, to pick and choose, and we talk about this in my marketing strategy, niche source marketing, which is pretty simply you create a trust on authenticated single content sources, and that's where you go to for that content. And if that doesn't answer your questions, you might broaden your search into the search engine world or other sources, but you have a go-to place. Just like in society, we have friends that we go to because we know that they're very fluent in whatever it is that we're asking about, and we know that they're the best resource of all the people that we know. It goes to the influencers and the people that we in our society, not influencers are people that we go to our society as being truth sayers, but in our social circles, we go to advocates and people that, if I'm looking to buy a TV and a friend of mine just bought a TV, I'm going to go and ask them, well, what did you find out? What did you be? And I may not buy the same TV as them because they may have a different reason for buying what they bought, but I get insight from them as to what they went through and use that because I know they went through it. I'm looking at what they bought. And I have a belief that what they're telling me is the truth because I see the result of what they did. That's what we're going to be doing online a lot more. We're going to be doing more of this. Who do I talk to about certain topics? Because they tend to be from an origin that I trust compared to general search query, which can be whatever's generated. Taking that tangent back, other categories of places to pursue being in front of our audiences in a way that they are using it for. Podcasts, it's amazing. When I first started our audio podcast now 19 years ago, almost 20, golly. Anyway, 19 years ago, the hardest part about podcasts wasn't creating them. That was kind of a easy, software audio kind of thing. It was getting it in a place where people could actually go listen to it. There weren't podcast channels. There wasn't Apple Podcasts or any of this. There was no podcast places. There were websites that would host where you could find podcasts to the link that you're hosting it on your own website. But that was a lot of process. People had to be actively looking for and wanting to chase down what you had to say. And it got a little easier, but it wasn't until 10 years ago that apps started coming up where it would just play podcasts. When the transition came from iPods to iPhones is when this all started getting some momentum. Now, as the joke goes, everybody has a podcast. It's a platform of opportunity for people to share their opinions and express their perspectives. And so forth. Because of that, we have them all over the place. So being in that medium of advertising is a very underutilized component of hotel strategy. If there are podcasts related to your destination, the purpose of your destination, and or your product and or things that you're related to for charities and supports and community and what have you, advertise in it. If there are podcasts related to travel that is inclusive of what you as a destination have, advertise in it. That also goes to all of the beautiful digital media that's out there, that as you travel from place to place and you're listening to Spotify or iHeartRadio or even Sirius FM or Sirius Radio, is you can progressively have ads that anybody in a radiant geographically can get your audio ad. And it's very convincing for the types of audience you're looking for, especially drive markets and so forth, that they're hearing about you in the area that they're in. So if you're a hotel that's in a market and you're advertising to people listening to audio media that's traveling through and into your market, basically it's from, to, and through, that they might make the choice to stay with you simply because you had an ad talking about how great it was, and they have yet to either decide or found out from your ad that it's actually better, and they can call it, from the car, find out and stay with you. So audio ads is a variant of this search everything marketing. DOOH ads, DOOH, digital out of home. This is when you're sitting in a doctor's office and there's ads on TVs that are in the doctor's office. You're sitting at a bar and there's bar ads. The banners in local areas, billboards, the digital billboards that we have more and more of, because cost effectively, even though it's expensive for the company to build it, they don't have to tear it. It's not expensive for somebody to add on it. You can basically spend $50 a day and be on a variety of billboards geographically. These are all digital out of home advertisements. Okay. We have always the OTT, which is your digital TV stations, the ability to have your ads on all of the streaming services that you have on smart TVs, like our channel, like all these channels, the Hulus and the Slings and the YouTube TVs and so forth. You can advertise and be very, 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 very targeted on the usage of your OTT. Over the top is the OTT acronym. Advertisement. Okay. Amazon for purposes of exposure, depending upon what you're servicing. It's always fun, and I had this as a fun thing where we just took all of our tchotchkes out of our gift shop about our hotel and threw it up into a store on Amazon, just simply for those who may have forgotten to buy something and want to buy something afterwards, post stay, whatever. Not that we didn't give them a link on the website and so forth, but we put it up on Amazon. It was surprising, and this was done for a city in Canada, in Vancouver, and we did it also for Banff, where people were just buying the stuff from your hotel because they were maybe saying that we were there, because they said Banff on it, said Vancouver on it, whatever. But it was surprising, and it actually, with those purchases, we were able to cultivate relationships where people could stay at the hotel because they bought the T-shirts. Like, hey, you got the T-shirt, well, you should get the stay, that kind of thing. And of course, always the third-party apps, your OTAs and so forth. These are all components of search everything marketing outside of your realm of what you would traditionally do as search engines. So the idea is you have to broaden your perspective of strategy to include beyond just focusing on search engines. I'm not taking away from search engines. I'm adding to what you're doing for search engines. You have to be inclusive of more and more beyond the scope of optimizing for search engines to optimizing for search everything, whether it be organic for search engine optimization, okay, search everything optimization, to everything marketing wise, search everything marketing, where you're broadening how you are discoverable on all these platforms. Look at how the platform is representing you. Look to see if there's anything you can do to augment that. Balance out the fact that some of these platforms look to say, well, we'll do this for free, but if you want more value, then you're gonna have to pay for it. Look at your source of value from the channel as it exists now. Does it warrant that consideration? Or is it a channel that you've been free for and you're getting good business, but you're like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna get more business for it. See the cost value relationship on what it would cost to expand the relationship. Usually a lot of these platforms will let you do it for a trial period of it, and they want you to succeed because they want you to sign a longer deal. So they might actually feature you more during that trial period so that you can validate the need to stay paying the platform more to have greater exposure. Yield that. Do that at strategic times of the year, whatever, and see if there's a true value for the usage of that platform. So I believe we hit that to a good degree. I know it's going to come back in our conversations with you because I really am hooked on this idea of search everything optimization, search everything marketing. Want more of that kind of discussion because it broadens the perspective of how you strategize for all of those things. I do want to come up with a great, huge announcement for next week's show, March's first show number 500. We are bringing the band back together. We will have as guest hosts Mr. Edward St. Onge from Flip2, Mr. Stuart Butler from Myrtle Beach, Mr. Robert Cole from Another Planet, and Mr. Tim Peter from Tim Peter and Associates. The original band is coming back next week. We're going to send out some, we're going to hit the email lists again. We're going to send out the invites to everybody that wants to come in. We're going to open up the chat room. We're going to do a bunch of old school stuff, OG stuff, old guard, that we haven't done for a while, kind of kick off the year 2025. I know it's the 1st of March, but you know what? It's still first quarter, so it still counts. Anyways, I think we hit it all for all of that. So look forward to all of that for those that are watching us live, for those who hear the recast. We do recast this show, as always, 11:30 a.m. Wednesdays, both for Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and 11:30 a.m. London time for our EU and Mideast friends on Wednesday. So you'll get that announcement if you haven't heard it live now, which always surprises me around the world in so many different time zones watching our show live. So thank you very much for that actually being a weekly thing for us. So until then, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.